know where you're watching me from. Okay? And please share. Please share as many times as you can. Let's get interactive. Okay? I'd love to know where you're watching me from. Lupita, David. Hi. Callie, how are you doing? Hi. I'd love to know where you're watching me from, if you don't mind. If you don't mind, please introduce yourself to me and send me some emojis. If you don't mind, let me know where you're watching me from. Joyce, Faith. Hi, how are you? How are you all doing? Thank you for joining. It means a lot to me. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Where are you watching me from? And feel free to ask me any question you have, okay? I am an immigration attorney. Well, if you follow me, you know that by now. I'm licensed here in the US, and I have clients across the globe. And so I'm here to just chit chat with my followers and to discuss a little bit about the diversity visa program. And we'll talk briefly about the marriage-based green card, very popular, right? The marriage-based green card. How do you get it? What do you do if your spouse decides to walk out? And all that good stuff. Okay? So we are going to be discussing all that. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Hi, everyone. Hey, Echo, how are you? Lisa. Okay. Hey, Miami Luxury. I like your name. We're just going to have a brief chat. I won't take much of your time. I promise you that. We're going to chat about the American Lottery, as people call it, the DV program 2026 is opened. So we're going to have a brief chat about that. And then we'll also talk about the marriage-based green card, how to get it, the evidence to submit, what do you do when your spouse decides to leave you, and all that. So thank you all for joining. Thank you for joining. You want to tell me where you're watching me from? If you can briefly introduce yourself to me, that would be nice. Oh, hi, Parker. How are you? I promise I won't take much of your time. Thank you all for joining. Thank you so much for joining. It's very good to have you here. I just want us to grab a seat and chat, right? Let's chat briefly. It's going to be very brief. We are going to be discussing a little bit about the DV lottery, the American lottery, and then we'll talk about the marriage-based green card. How do you get it? What do you do when your spouse decides to leave? So I'm flipping between two screens here. So pardon me, TikTok when I come here, and then pardon me, Facebook and Instagram when I come here as well. Okay. Hey, hi, how are you? Okay. Thank you all for joining. Thank you. Please share. Please share the broadcast to your friends. You know, there are those, the invisible watchers. They won't come online to watch it, but they'll be watching. So please share. Share the live stream, share the feed, let everyone come on board to watch and listen. They'll learn a thing or two. And feel free to ask me questions as well, on condition that they are easy questions, so that I can appear very smart. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But very good to see you all here. Hi. Thank you. It looks like the numbers here on TikTok is really, really encouraging. But thank you all for joining. I appreciate your time so much. Let's dive right into it. My name is Akosia Owusu Banahini. Just call me Akosia Banahini. I am the founder and principal attorney here at AB Legal Consult. We predominantly do immigration. We do some family law as well, and we do business law. But immigration has picked up so great, so that's that. Oh, thank you all for joining TikTok. That's amazing. I have like 300 and something people watching me on TikTok. That's really encouraging. A brief introduction about myself. I am Ghanaian, born and raised. I relocated here to the US some over 10 years ago. It's been many years. And oh boy, I do have my immigration story. I do have my personal immigration journey, which I think I will share in due time. So the work that I do is not really for money. It's because I love it. Okay. I'm very passionate about it because of my personal experience, my story. I couldn't afford an attorney. Okay. So I try to make my services bearable, the fees, so that you can retain me because I didn't have the luxury to retain an attorney. Boy, I've had my immigration journey, interesting and fascinating journey, which will be shared later, maybe some years down the line. I have tasted the American hustle. Those that know me really know. I know what the American hustle is, really. Tasted a little bit of my American dream, just a little bit of my American dream. And I know the law. Okay, I did law school here. I have a JD here. I have a master's in law here from the United States, and I'm also licensed here. So, who is the best person to retain as an attorney than someone who has the lived experience? One, as an immigrant, navigating the complex immigration system, who has tasted what it means to hustle in America, the American hustle, and having a finger licking little bit of experience of the American dream. So I'm the best person to retain, okay, for your immigration pursuit or your immigration needs, as it were. So let's talk a little bit about the 2026 Diversity Visa Program. As you all know, the registration opened on October 2nd, which is just 2 days ago, October 2nd, 2024, and it's going to be open through to November 5th, 2024. So please enter your applications. Don't wait. And please read the instructions. I think sometimes people don't read instructions. Please, please, please read the instructions, enter the application. And if you're married, you and your spouse, both of you, should enter the application to increase your chances of winning. The myth that if someone is in the US, the person stands a chance of winning is not true. Wherever you are in the world, you can win. Just follow the instructions. And if you're married, both you and your spouse should enter the application. Please do not lie. Do not lie in the application, okay? Because it will come back to bite you. So if you're not married and you say you're married, you're lying. Please don't lie. When you're applying, no one is going to request for your marriage certificate. But when you win, or many years down the line, you finally make it to the US, then you're going to need that certificate. So if you're not married, then you have to come up with one. And I don't think you want to do that. I don't think you really want to do that. So be very mindful, okay, with the information you provide to the State Department when you're applying for the 2026 DV program. And no multiple entries. I think I put it in my video. So if you enter it multiple times, if you enter the 2026 DV program, thank you all. Thank you. If you enter the application multiple times, then you're automatically disqualified. Okay, no multiple entries. So do not lie, no multiple entries. And if you're married, both you and your spouse should enter to increase your chances of winning. Okay, so there are some countries that are not eligible for the DV program, and it's simply because I consulted with someone and she said, well, I have heard. So she's from Nigeria. She called me from Nigeria and she said, I've heard that we cannot enter. And I said, yeah, you cannot because quite a number of Nigerians are already here in the US. So the countries that are not allowed or are not eligible to enter the 2026 DV program. Quite a number of countries, but they are not allowed or they are not eligible to enter the application only because quite a number of the natives of those countries are already here. And so the US would rather give that opportunity to other people. And some of these countries are Jamaica, Canada. Jamaica cannot enter, they are not eligible. Canada, Dominican Republic, Nigeria, Venezuela, Pakistan, quite a number. Jamaica is part of it. India, Haiti, Bangladesh, quite a number of countries are not eligible. And it's not because the US is beefing with you, or no, it's just because quite a number of your natives are already here. So you cannot enter. Okay. All right. So I think that will be that for the DV lottery. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. TikTok is doing very well. Facebook and Instagram, I suspect all of you. Okay, so let's dive right into the marriage-based green card. How do you get it? What evidence do you need to submit? And what happens if you are married and in the process of, your green card process, your spouse decides to walk away, or your spouse threatens you or abuse you? What do? Does it end? Is there another pathway for you to get the green card? These are some of the things we'll be discussing, and I won't take much of your time. It's going to be very brief. So yeah. So generally, a US citizen or a green card holder can file for his or his spouse, no matter where the spouse is, whether here in the US or abroad. Okay. So you don't have to limit yourself because your spouse is abroad. So you won't file for your spouse. You can do that so long as you're a green card holder or US citizen. I recommend being a US citizen to actually file for your spouse because it's quite faster. The green card holder is a little bit slow. So US citizens can file for their spouse no matter where they are. Okay. And you kick the ball rolling by filling out the form I-130. That is what is used to establish the marriage that you have with your spouse. So you start by filling the form I-130 to establish the relationship you have with your spouse. It's going to ask you questions about your spouse. And if you've been married before, you also want to state in there, the form is actually going to ask you whether you've been married before. So you have to establish or demonstrate that, yes, you've been married. That is, if you have and you are no longer married, you can be married to two people at the same time. For the purpose of immigration, you can do that. So you have to demonstrate by submitting evidence to show that, one, you are actually married, and two, the person you're filing for, and number two, if you have any previous marriages, you are no longer married, and you can only demonstrate that by submitting divorce, your divorce certificate. Okay, so you start applying for your spouse by filling out the form I-130 to establish the relationship that you have. So that is step one. Step two is the adjustment of status. Okay, so the sponsoring spouse is the US citizen, and then the beneficiary spouse is the non-US citizen. I have a problem when people say aliens, so please don't say aliens. Take it from me, it's not cool. Don't say aliens, just say, and I think the USCIS should change that because the form says petition for alien resident or alien family or something like that, alien relative. No, just say the non-citizen, non-US citizen spouse. I think that is very cool and respectful. So you start by filing the form I-130, and then subsequently you adjust your status. So the sponsoring spouse does not adjust his or her status. It is the beneficiary spouse that adjusts his or her status. And you are adjusting your status from one visa category to another. So you come into the US with a B1, B2. That's a non-immigrant visa. So you are actually adjusting your status from that category to a different category. So from the non-immigrant to the immigrant. Okay. So you file your adjustment of status if the beneficiary spouse is here in the United States. If the beneficiary spouse is here in the United States, after your I-130 is approved, then you file for the adjustment of status here in the US. And it's not the sponsoring spouse that is filing, it is the beneficiary spouse, if the beneficiary spouse is here in the US. Now, you can file both concurrently, meaning you can file it at the same time. I've had people say that it's quite heavy on the pocket to file all the petitions together. So you can actually file the I-130 first, and it's going to take a couple of months because you cannot expedite the I-130. You cannot file the premium processing to expedite it. And so all you have to do is to just wait it out. It's going to take a couple of months. I have seen approval comes in within 4 months. I have seen it come in within 6 months. I have seen I-130 being approved over a year. It all depends on the backlog that the US CIS has. And they always have a backlog. They always do. And so I-130 first, and then I-485 to adjust your status. If you can afford it, you have saved, you've planned towards it, then of course, please file everything concurrently so that when the officer picks your filing packet, he has everything in his check, so that you save yourself some time. Okay, so that is that for the I-485, the adjustment of status, if the beneficiary spouse is here in the US. Now, if the beneficiary spouse is not here in the US, that means that it has to go through what we call consular processing. The consular processing, that is when the beneficiary spouse is not in the US. So if the beneficiary spouse is here, right after the I-130 approval is granted, then you move to adjust your status here in the US. But if the beneficiary spouse is not here in the US, that means that it has to go through consular processing. And so the approval, a copy of the approval will be sent to the National Visa Center. The National Visa Center is an agency under the State Department, and the State Department does all consular activities abroad, processing visa. Okay, they take care of everything. The State Department, they deal with consular activities abroad, and there's an agency in the State Department called the National Visa Center. So they process that. They process the immigrant visas, okay, and even non-immigrant visas. They process all consular visas abroad. Okay, so once the I-130 is granted, sponsoring spouse is here, beneficiary spouse is abroad, a notice of the approval will be sent to the National Visa Center, and the beneficiary spouse will complete a form called the DS-260 and provide additional information. If they are really married, a lot more documents will have to be uploaded in your system, and they'll check the eligibility of your marriage. How bona fide your marriage is, and then a visa will be granted to you. That is the beneficiary spouse, wherever you are in the world. So once you receive that visa, you come into the US, and then you would go through your phase 3. That is if you are not here. That is when you adjust your status. So remember that if you're here in the US, we establish your relationship by filling out the form I-130. And then when the approval comes in, you are in the US, then we adjust your status from whatever category of visa that you had, the non-immigrant visa to the immigrant visa. So we are going to adjust your status if you are here immediately to get your green card. If you're not here, then it will go through consular processing with the National Visa Center. Additional documents will be requested or collected, and then you get a visa. You have to wait for your time, and that's where your priority date comes to play. Now, if you have a petition pending with the USCIS or the National Visa Center, and you get a visa to come into the US, you come into the US and you do nothing for the first 90 days. Do nothing. Don't apply for any immigration benefits for the first 90 days. If you have a petition pending in the US and you get a visa, you come in, you do nothing for the first 90 days. And after the 90th day, you can actually apply for any immigration benefits. If you do come into the US with a certain category of visa, and then you within the first 90 days you apply for immigration benefits, you can be in trouble. The laws does not permit that. You can be charged with immigration fraud. That means that you came into the US. You came into the US with a certain intent. Okay, so you came in with a B1, B2 when actually you wanted to get immigration benefits like a green card. So within your first 90 days, you do nothing when you come here, whether you have a petition pending or not. You do nothing within the first 90 days. And after the first 90 days, you go ahead and then you apply for immigration benefits. So if you have your I-130 is approved, it goes to the National Visa Center for consular processing. Consular processing is done, you get a visa, you come into the US. For you, a person like that, you don't have to wait for the 90 days. Okay, you don't have to wait for the 90 days. But if you come into the US with a B1, B2, a non-immigrant visa, and then you come trying to adjust your status, do nothing within the first 90 days. Else you can be charged with immigration fraud, you can be deported, and you don't want that. You don't want to be deported. So please do nothing within your first 90 days when you come here. Okay, so I-130 approved, adjustment of status. If you are here in the US, you get that done. If you're not here, it goes through consular processing. You get your visa, you come into the US, then you adjust your status by filing the form I-485, which will give you the green card. So earlier this year, sometime I think in April, the USCIS changed quite a number of things. Previously, and please pardon me because I'm looking here and looking at my Facebook and Instagram audience are here, my TikTok audience are here. So I have to, flip my head around here, back and forth. So in April, prior to that, the USCIS would not charge for a form called Form I-765, which is the work authorization form. That is what will give you a social security number. That is if you are not here in the US as a student. If you're here as a visitor, and then you're adjusting your status, you have to file the Form I-765. Previously, it was part of the Form I-485, which was used to adjust your status, and it was completely free. But the USCIS woke up one day and said, you know what, we're going to charge you people. So now they charge for Form I-765, depending on your category, depending on the category of visa that you're trying to apply for. So if you're married, and then you're filing your adjustment of status and you decide to file the Form I-765, you have to pay for that. Previously, you didn't have to pay. So you adjust your status, it would have come with that. But now you have to actually pay for the work authorization. You have to fill it out and then pay. Previously, you just fill out the form I-765 and pay nothing. But now you have to pay. Okay. So you're here, I-130, you remember we use that to establish the relationship you have with your spouse, the sponsoring spouse. And then you get an approval. If you're in the US, the beneficiary spouse adjusts his or her status to get a green card. And in doing that, you fill the Form I-765 to get your work authorization. If the beneficiary spouse is not in the US, that means that the beneficiary spouse will have to go through the consular processing, as I mentioned, get a visa, come into the US, and phase 3 will kick in for the beneficiary spouse who was abroad. So that beneficiary spouse would now adjust his or her status to get a green card. And remember that is when you fill out the Form I-765 and actually pay for that. And I think that is like $240. First, it was free. Amazing, right? So you fill that out and then you get that. So what actually happens if in the course of all this, your spouse decides to say, I am done? Recently, a client consulted with me, a prospective client, now my client, did consult with me, and her spouse, who is a US citizen, is actually extorting money from her and threatening her that he was going to get her deported. And it's like, okay, it really didn't make sense. Why would you extort money from your spouse? Why would you threaten your spouse that you're not going to file for the adjustment of status for your spouse? Meanwhile, it is based on the promises that you gave your spouse. It's the only reason why your spouse decides to move from her country of birth to come into the US. It's because of all the things that you said to your spouse. And then she comes here and you are threatening her. So if you find yourself in a place like that, what do? There's a pathway for you. You don't have to cower in fear. And these are some of the things I didn't know when I came to the US. I had no clue that if you are, if you're going through the immigration system and something happens, there are other pathways for you. There were so many things I didn't know. I had to sit down and do my research because I had to file my petition myself. I couldn't afford an attorney, so I did an extensive research. And it was during the research that I got to know certain things. And now you will have to pay me to do that, but I'm not definitely going to charge you like the other attorneys charge you. And like the attorney that I was trying to retain was trying to charge me that I couldn't pay. So I'm not going to charge you that much. But what I came to learn and what I do for my clients now is that you don't have to stay in a marriage that your spouse is trying to threaten you that I'm going to get you deported. There's a pathway for you. You don't have to go crazy because you need a green card from your spouse. Okay, your spouse is extorting money from you, beating you, abusing you, doing stuff, and because you are afraid that you're going to lose out on your green card, you decide to stay. No, there's a pathway for you. You don't have to stay in there. You can file for VAWA. You can file for VAWA. Okay, it's an option. It's a pathway for you, and so you don't have to stay in there. You have to consult. Don't consult any attorney. Consult me. You have to call my office. Give my office a call. Okay, at 703-705-9905. Give my office a call and let us help you with a VAWA. I have filed a number of VAWA petitions for people, and it's been successful. So you don't have to stay. I remember consulting with this client who was in tears, so much in tears because her husband is extorting money from her. Ridiculous, right? And I said to her, you don't have to stay in there. Of course, I cannot decide for you because when it comes to some of these things, I can't decide for you. But as far as the immigration path is concerned, getting a green card is concerned, I can tell you what to do. I can advise you on what to do. The ultimate decision is with you. So we filed for VAWA, and she has received her work authorization. So there's a pathway for you if you find yourself in a marriage where your spouse is threatening you because the sponsoring spouse is just doing what he or she wants to do. You don't have to stay in that. There's a pathway for you. We can file for VAWA. Okay, so let's discuss some of the evidence that you need to submit to the USCIS as far as your marriage-based green card is concerned. So listen to this carefully. Generally, there's that presumption that marriages, when it comes to immigration, especially those for immigration benefits, are not bona fide. They're not valid. There's that presumption. And so we want to rebut that presumption. And how do we rebut that presumption? We rebut that presumption by submitting certain key evidence, certain pieces of evidence. And those evidence is basically going to demonstrate that your marriage is valid. Your marriage is bona fide. So if you don't submit those pieces of evidence, you're going to be in trouble. The USCIS will come knocking at your door. That's when they try to be extremely detailed, knocking at your door, talking to your neighbors, and long before you realize, you receive NTA. The NTA is the notice to appear. You receive an NTA to show up in court, and you're being deported right away, right after getting a fair hearing. So, what are some of the pieces of evidence that you must submit to demonstrate that your marriage is valid and your marriage is bona fide? Number one, the ultimate is that you have a marriage license. You need a marriage license. You cannot just say I'm married and not have a marriage license. And it doesn't matter whether you got married here in the US or you got married abroad. If you have a valid marriage license, we can submit that. Okay, so we need that. Now, if you're really married and your marriage is valid, you guys must have something together. I understand that not all couple live together because you can be married so I can be married here and here in the, like I'm married. Okay. Well, I'm not saying I'm married, but I'm using myself as an example that you can be married, that I can be married, and I live here in the US, and maybe my spouse lives in India. Okay. I won't be able to provide an evidence like a lease agreement that we live together, because we don't live together. But if you and your spouse are here in the US and you're filing for immigration benefits, some of the evidence that you need to submit, including the marriage certificate, is the fact that you live together, you're cohabiting. Okay, you're cohabiting. And in events that that's not happening, because I live in state A and my partner lives in state B. So my partner has a lease agreement, I do have a lease agreement. You may want to submit both to show and add a statement, a notarized statement, not just a statement, a notarized statement that I live here, my husband lives there. Okay. Aside that, you also want to establish that you commingle your funds. So if you're really married, I mean, there are people that are spendthrift and then there are others that are not. But you should be able to commingle your funds, and you want to have evidence to demonstrate that your funds are together. So you can have a joint bank account to just take care of the bills, and that is enough. Don't go and open an account just for the purpose of immigration benefit. Let's be smart here a little bit. Okay, most people do, but you cannot submit an evidence of bank statement that is not active. There has to be an active transaction bank account. You cannot open an account today and then submit it to the USCIS tomorrow that this is a joint account. There has to be some transactions in there. It doesn't matter that your spouse is on a B1, B2. There are some banks that would allow a holder of a B1, B2 visa to have an account. I have had clients say, well, prospective clients, after they go to other attorneys and their cases are messed up, and they come and they want you to clean up the mess, which is okay. You realize that they just submitted bank records that they didn't have active transactions. That is a red flag. Okay, so in as much as you want to establish that both of you have an account together, if your spouse, the beneficiary spouse does not work, it makes sense that you won't see any monies coming from the beneficiary spouse. It makes perfect sense that you don't see that. And if it's only the sponsoring spouse that is working, and so let's say monies are coming from his or her job or check because they have multiple accounts, that makes sense. In a situation like that, you may want to add a statement to explain. Okay, you may want to add a statement. And please, like I keep saying, I'm just turning here and there because my Facebook and Instagram audience are here and my TikTok audience are here. So I have to just flip around my head and all that. So back to what I was saying, that the statement there has to be some active transaction in there. You cannot just submit a bank record just for submitting sake or submission sake. You don't want to do that. So if the sponsoring spouse does not work, rightly so. If a sponsoring spouse does not have work authorization, we know that legally they are not supposed to work. We understand that people do stuff, that's fine, but legally we know the officer that is going to review your filing packet knows that the beneficiary spouse is on a B1, B2. And so they are not required to work. The B1, B2 has a restriction, and one of those restrictions is that you are not allowed to work. So it makes perfect sense that you submit an account that does not reflect any monies coming in from the sponsoring spouse. It makes perfect sense. Just make sure that if you're adding a statement, you explain, and that statement is absolutely notarized. It means a lot. It actually establishes the credibility of the statement you're putting together. Okay, so that is that. Another piece of evidence that you must submit is that if there are any previous marriages, you don't want to lie. You want to put it in the form, and you want to submit a divorce decree. Okay, you want to submit divorce certificate or final divorce decree to show that you are no longer married. So remember that if you are filling out the petition, the first form to kick the ball rolling, which is the form I-130, that is the form that you're using to establish the relationship that you have with your beneficiary spouse. And in that form, you'll be asked the number of times you've been married and when you divorced. So the only way to prove that you are actually divorced from your previous spouse is to submit a final divorce decree, okay, or a divorce certificate. You need to submit that. So that is if you have been previously married. If you've not been previously married, you don't have to. The trick then becomes those that lie to get a visa to come into the US. If you lie to get a visa to come into the US, and so you put in your application that you are married, like I said earlier, all these forms that you fill goes to the State Department. They're somewhere in there. The State Department and then the USCIS, they are in bed together. They work together. They work hand in hand. So whatever information you provide to the State Department, the USCIS will have access to it. And so if you lie because you're trying to get a visa you're getting a visa, you want to get a visa to come to the US, please make sure you're covering your back. I'm not advocating that you lie. Let me throw that out there. I am not supposed to do that. Legally, I cannot do that. But if you decide to do that, you may want to check that, because whatever information, I've spoken to a number of clients who have consulted with me, and lawyer, I thought once I put that in there, I would get a visa. Maybe that helped, because one of the things that the consular officer who is dishing out or issuing out the visas, one of the things that they're trained to look out for to ask is whether you have family ties back home. So wherever home is, they want to know whether you have family ties there. So that's why people are forced to lie. What are the family ties? That you're married, that you have kids. Okay. So people actually come up with lies just to get a visa. I'm not judging, that's okay. But whatever information you put on a DS-160 when you're trying to get a B1, B2 visa to come into the US, whatever information you put on a DS-160 to get a visa to come into the US, that information is here waiting for you. And so fast forward, the lie gives you a visa, you come to the US and you decide to adjust your status. Please don't forget the lie. I tell my clients all the time that I want to know your immigration history. Do you remember? These are questions that I ask all my clients. Do you remember? If you don't, I'm happy to FOIA those documents for you. I can actually request for your immigration records from the DS-160 that you submitted when you were trying to get a visa to getting into the country, and then your I-94. I can get all that for you, and then we'll make sure that whatever information you provide that it's not changing, because the moment that information changes, you're going to risk deportation, and you don't want that. Okay, so if you have actually stated in your DS-160 when you were trying to get a visa that you're married and you are here trying to adjust your status, please, we would need one of the pieces of evidence that you need to submit. Remember that if you're filling the I-130, you're putting it in the previous marriages that you've been in. And so how do we justify or demonstrate that those marriages are actually over? And the marriages that you reported in your DS-160 because you had to establish some family ties back home, we need a certificate of all those. We need a final decree to show that, yes, these marriages, I got into them, but they are actually done. I'm actually divorced, it's done. So we need evidence to establish that. Okay, so whatever it is you do to get a visa, I hope you're writing them down, because we need evidence to demonstrate that you are actually out of those or you are actually in there. Okay, so final divorce decree for all previous marriages. We need that. We need birth certificate from both sponsoring spouse and beneficiary spouse. We need that as well. We need evidence that the sponsoring spouse is actually a U.S. citizen. So passports, right? If the U.S. citizen was born here, then they don't have the naturalization certificates. They have a passport or have a passport card. We can use that. But if the sponsoring spouse naturalized, meaning that the sponsoring spouse was not born in the U.S., then we'll need that naturalization certificate to demonstrate that they are actually U.S. citizens. Okay, so your lease agreements, your photos are very important. Let me tell you a quick story, short, funny story. A client consulted with me, and it's amazing how you consult with clients and then you realize the little mistakes. Today I was speaking to a friend and I said it's the little things that really matter, because of something that happened here in the office. I was like, it's the little things that really matter. So this client consulted with me, and she was coming to me from another attorney. The case is messed up. She has received a notice to appear, the NTA. She's going to be in immigration court because they've charged her with immigration fraud, and she's likely to be deported. We're going to do our best so she doesn't get deported. And so that's what happened. Something else, and I just mentioned the photos, and so this is about a photo that they submitted. So all the pictures the attorney submitted on behalf of the beneficiary and sponsoring spouses were selfies. Okay, there's no way that you're married. Your marriage is bona fide and all your photos are selfies. So that you guys didn't go to church. You didn't give your phone to someone to take photos of you. You haven't been to the restaurant. You were not able to give your phone to someone to take photos of you. It's just not possible. It's absolutely not possible. And so the USCIS officer, upon seeing the selfies, and I was reading the denial notice, and the officer was talking about the selfie. Okay, so for the photos that you're looking to submit to the USCIS to show, or you're submitting those photos as evidence to demonstrate that you're actually married, they cannot be selfies. 1 or 2 selfies is cool, but if you're submitting 10 photos or you're submitting only 3 photos and they're all selfies, that's a problem. That's a problem. So that is something you want to look out for. You can submit selfies. I mean, everybody takes selfies. If you're with your significant other or your partner, we all take selfies, okay? But for the purpose of the immigration benefit, if you're going to add a selfie, let it be 1 or 2. And then add other photos to it. Don't just submit 2 pictures and they are all selfies. It's going to come back to, so it is the only reason why, after the officer saw that, the officer decided to dive deeper and investigate. I tell my clients, today a client said to me that you're asking for too much information, too much documents, and I am not comfortable. And I said to my clients that I can understand. Nobody likes it when you're trying to dig deep into their tax record, their criminal history, because you want to be sure that everything looks good, where you're trying to dot your I's and cross your T's. Nobody likes that. But the truth of the matter is that you need it when it comes to immigration benefits, because long before you realize, the little thing that you overlooked will be coming back to hurt you in a terrible way. And so I try to avoid that. And I wear the heart of the immigration officer. Although I'm a licensed attorney, for every marriage-based green card that I work on, I wear the heart of the immigration officer. And so I am looking for every single thing, every single evidence. I want to give them enough that they don't even come back to my clients. So the whole of this year, none of my clients, as far as the marriage-based green card is concerned, none of my clients have attended interviews. They have not been invited for an interview. You know why? It's because I dump everything into the sink. And what I also do is I make sure that the evidence I'm submitting to them is legitimate. Recently, and no disrespect to the country, I'm not even going to mention the country, but the USCIS has flagged a certain country I'm not going to disclose the country. They have flagged a certain country because the marriage certificates that comes from that particular country, they have determined that it is fraudulent. It's not real. It is not legitimate. It's not a legitimate document. Okay, so I check. Recently, a client gave me a lease agreement. Okay, as part of the package that I had to submit. And if you know me, you know I'm very detailed. My friends have issues with that. I would ask questions. I always want to know. I ask the clients that, okay, so this lease agreement, let's talk. I ask specific questions, and at a point, all I heard was, I can't hear you, I can't hear you. I figured it out. So I try to be very detailed with all my clients. I wouldn't want to submit anything that will come back to hurt my clients. I say this to all my clients. A win for my clients is a win for me. And so I try to be very detailed in the piece of evidence that I submit. And I also ensure that these evidence are legitimate. And that's the way I check that. Some attorneys will just take it and submit it. And once the case is ruined, they don't even pick the calls of the client. I have a way of checking that the documents you're giving me, the pieces of evidence you're giving me is legitimate. If it's not, we will have a conversation, and maybe I will fire you, just like you can fire me. Okay. But yeah, these are some of the pieces of evidence that you should submit for your adjustment of status. Now, you can give the USCIS everything that you know, and they will still come back for more. And this is what I personally love about immigration. The fact that the officer will give you an opportunity to present additional evidence. And so they issue what we call the request for evidence, RFE. I love that about immigration because you have an opportunity to fix whatever it is. Okay, you have an opportunity to fix that. If they are in doubt, they will request for the evidence that they need, and as much as you can, please meet the deadline. Work with your attorney, work with me, because you're going to retain me. Okay, so work with your attorney. Make sure that you're giving your attorney the evidence that your attorney is requesting, so that you can give everything to the USCIS and you're good to go. So before COVID, the USCIS would, request or invite couples for interviews. Because of the backlog, they stopped that. But now I see that they started doing that. They started, inviting people to come in for interview. What I have done for my clients is that I give them everything, including the medical. So many years ago, it was when you were attending, most people would actually submit the medicals when they have actually been invited for interviews. What I do for my clients, and like I said, the whole of this year especially, none of my clients have attended the immigration interview because I do a great job and I give the USCIS everything that they need so that they don't come back to me. They don't come back to my clients. I want to give them enough that once they pick the filing packet, it's check, 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 check. Another thing that I have noticed is that if the piece of evidence is missing something, it gives the officer the time to actually re-review your filing packet, and they'll find another reason to request for additional and maybe deny you. And so I try to give the officer, the USCIS officers, enough evidence so they don't come back. So these are the pieces of evidence that you should submit for your marriage-based green card. And just in case you are invited to attend the interview, here are some tips that I'll leave with you. Please be yourself. Please be yourself. No embellishment. Don't offer things that you have not been asked. Okay, don't talk too much. Just be you. Be yourself, be relaxed, be organic, be authentic. These officers there, They have been trained. They are psychologists. They are reading your body language. They are listening to the voice behind the voice. And so you want to be yourself. It doesn't matter whatever it is you're doing, as in your marriage, it doesn't matter. Be yourself. Be yourself and answer the questions. Don't offer unsolicited, don't offer answers that you have not been asked. And please remember, if you're really married to someone, then you probably have an idea what time the person went to bed. Some of the questions that can be asked is, who went to bed first? What time do you go to sleep? Okay, so where do you put your toothbrushes? What color is your toothbrush? They ask questions that you probably will not think about, but they are legitimate questions that if you're really truly married to someone, you should know. But I also understand that there are people that, people forget people's birthday dates. And so I know there are people that are quite forgetful and don't even pay attention that much. But then you have to be very creative in those answers. I remember that in an interview a year ago, a client, the officer, and when you attend an interview with your client, you cannot talk, right? So as the attorney, you are sitting there just observing. So the officer asked the couple that, what time do you go to sleep? And they answered and said, well, the lady said, I went to sleep before my husband, so I don't have an idea what time he went to sleep, but I went to sleep around so and so time. And then the officer asked that, who left the house first? And the lady said, well, we both left together. So they asked about their works. They did explain that. And the officer asked, did any of you eat snack yesterday? Did you snack on anything yesterday? And the lady was just seated there. She said, I don't think so. I don't recall. And for me, it was the best thing she could do. Rather than, and just when she was talking, the husband was also talking. So if both of them had said different things to the same answer, that would have been a problem, right? But then she said, I can't recall. I don't know. A lot happens in 24 hours. And for me, that was a very creative way. And I said to my clients prior to the interview that just be very, very creative in your answers. If you don't know, you don't know. If you don't remember, you don't remember. But stories like, when did you meet? You have to remember. You may not remember the exact date, and that is fine. And how did you meet? Most couples have different stories. Everybody has their version of how they met and who said what first. And I think that is natural, that is organic, that is authentic, than trying to come up with something. Okay, so recap, then I would let you go. But if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. I'm happy to take a few questions, that is if you have any. So recap. I recommend that you become a US citizen before you file for your beneficiary spouse. If your spouse is here, you establish the relationship by filing what we call the Form I-130. And I think I said, please don't call anyone alien, just say non-citizen spouse, because I think that is very cool, non-citizen spouse, not alien. So you file the Form I-130 to get the ball rolling, and if it's approved and your spouse is here in the US, then you adjust their status where they get the green card. Previously, you would add the Form I-7065, which would give you the work authorization for free, but now you have to pay for that. You have the option to file everything concurrently, which means filing everything together. People have said that it's heavy on the pocket, and so you can just file the I-130 first and file the rest later, which is fine. If your spouse, the beneficiary spouse, is not here, you remember that it goes through what we call the consular processing with the National Visa Center, and we fill out the DS 260 request. They're going to request for additional evidence. Get a visa, you come to the US, and then you adjust your status here. And you don't have to stay in the marriage because your husband or your spouse or your wife, I beg your pardon, is abusing you, threatening you. I cited an example with one of my clients. there's a pathway for you, VAWA. You can file for VAWA, so you don't have to stay in there. And the USCIS will never contact the abusing spouse. That I can guarantee you. If they do, they're in trouble. They know better. They would never do that. So you have that option. You don't have to stay in there. And we discussed some evidence that you can submit to the USCIS, your marriage certificates, your birth certificates, your active bank transaction, right? Active joint bank statement. There has to be some active transaction in there, and it's okay that the beneficiary spouse is not working by his or her name is on there, because rightly so, you're now legally allowed to work with a B1, B2. Birth certificates and divorce decrees for all previous marriages, and do not lie. And if you happen to be invited to an interview, be yourself. And yeah, that's it on the marriage-based green card. Please listen, I have a live demo coming up. I would love for you to follow our social media pages. Our Instagram is ab.legal.consult. Our Facebook page is AB Legal Consult LLC. And we have a LinkedIn presence as well, AB Legal Consult. We have Twitter X, AB Legal Consult. And on TikTok, it's amazing. The number of people viewing on TikTok is just, thank you guys, thank you. On TikTok, it's The Immigrant's Attorney, okay? So you can follow these pages. There's a free live demo coming up. And I put together a pocket-sized booklet called The Immigrant's Guide. It's a 10-page booklet, very, very easy to read. It is going to guide you through the through your immigration pursuit. And whether you are here in the US looking to adjust your status, or you are abroad looking to relocate, The Immigrant's Guide is the perfect read for you. So please, please, please follow our social media pages. There will be flyers rolling out with the dates and everything. Just keep an eye. We've already launched the ads running around, so you just have to click it, and wherever you see it, it's everywhere. Click it, and also I'm going to be putting the dates out there. So in the live demo, you are going to learn about certain steps to take, right, to help you navigate the complex immigration system. Immigration system is so complex. The laws are ever changing. It's so that today the law can be this, tomorrow it's completely different, right? Example is the parole in place. President Biden did an amazing job and said, we're going to reunite families. We're going to help people that came through the border and has been here for a couple of years, right? We're going to help them get their stay. They're going to get green cards here, and boom, they are sued. The whole program is on hold. So if you haven't received the benefits from the PIP, you can submit the application, but they are not being processed. And that is how immigration is. 1 minute this is happening, the next minute something completely different is happening. And so it's very important that you get or you retain an attorney who is up to date on the laws of immigration. And I say this all the time. I have had the personal experience of navigating this immigration system. I have lived the American hustles. People around me, my friends know. They know my immigration journey. I have lived the American hustle. What it means to really hustle in America, I have that experience. Thankfully, I'm thankful that I am trying to experience what the American dream could be, and I want it to be possible for everybody out there, so you can also experience your American dream. I had my JD here in the US, my Master's of Law here in the US, and I'm licensed here. So who else would you retain for your immigration work, or your immigration pursuit, or your immigration journey? More, because I have the lived experience, right? As an immigrant, I know the American hustle. I actually understand it. I've lived it. I know what it means to just experience a little bit of the American dream, right? And I know the law. right? And I'm licensed to actually practice as well. So please, 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 please give my office a call. Our numbers are 703-705-9905. And our email is info@ablegalconsults.com. Let me see if there are any questions to answer. Okay. Frema, please. I haven't seen that, and I apologize. I'll check that out for you. Okay. Please send. I want you to send me a message now at 703-705-9905. I'm personally going to check it, Frema. Thank you for letting me know. America for Americans. Well, immigrants make America great. Okay. Immigrants make America great. Research shows that immigrants and the work that we come here to do actually helps the economy. So I understand that America is for America, but America is also for immigrants. It's for everybody. Okay? So I don't agree with you that America is for Americans. Yes, the same number is on WhatsApp. We have a WhatsApp presence with the same number, 703-705-9905. Okay. Do you assist F1 students? Yes. Please, we do. So in one of, there's going to be a live session where we'll be discussing other pathways. So this is one of the pathways to securing a green card, right? There are other pathways which I believe it's very good for the F1 students as well. After you've come here for your bachelor's or your master's, you can, depending on your record, right? You can either qualify for the EB2 or the EB1. And one of these days we'll have a session on that. Oh, thank you, lady. She said she's the best. Give her a call. Frema, please text me. Please send an email to info@ablegalconsults.com. info@ablegalconsults.com. And I am happy to. Okay, so Letitia, please send an email with a question. Letitia, could you please resend it? I'll personally take a look at it. I'm sorry if we have missed it, but I'll definitely take a look at it. Okay, so please, you can forward the email to info@ablegalconsults.com. And our number has WhatsApp presence because we have clients abroad. And so it's going to be very expensive for them to actually place phone calls to us. So our number has a WhatsApp presence. So Letitia, I look forward to personally reading your email. Okay. Oh, thank you. You said I'm awesome. Thank you, Letitia. And so are you. Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you. Hey, Mr. Amponsa. Thank you. Okay, let's see. Okay. Oh, that's nice. Did you use NIW? Okay. I'm thinking that you're asking whether I file NIW. Yes, I do petition for the NIW, and I'm not even bragging. I have a 100% success rate thus far. Okay. 100% success rate. Oh, that's my mom. Thank you. I'm not going to say your name, but thank you. Thank you so much. I love you. Thank you. Any other questions? I really, really appreciate you all joining me. I hope you found this very helpful and insightful. And please feel free to give us a call at 703-705-9905. And please follow our social media pages. It's AB Legal Consult everywhere. Okay, it's only on Instagram that for some weird reasons we had to add a dot because it's Instagram, ab.legal.consult. But please follow us, and hopefully you see the ads running around. Please click it and receive access to the Immigrant's Guide. I put it together with you in mind. some of the information that I wish I knew or I wish I had when I relocated to the US. I have put everything in writing. I have received your message. Thank you. Thank you. I have received your message. I'll respond soon. Some of the information I wish I had, right? And when I relocated to the US, I have put everything. I sat down, thought about my immigration journey, the stress, the frustration, and all the things that I wish I knew. I have put everything in writing for you, and I made it such that it's going to be very, very easy to read. You can access it on your phone and just read through it. It's easy on the eye, and so yes, I hope you have access to that. And I'll be bringing out more of these sessions. I'll try my best to do it weekly. So please let me know what you want to know. Feel free to send us DMs, email us. If you have any questions, if there's any topic you want us to discuss, please feel free and send that to us, and we are happy to do that. Okay, so yes, we do NIW, we do the EB1 as well. Great, Frema, thank you, thank you. Okay, the WhatsApp number, Amankwa, the WhatsApp number is 703 705 9905. Okay. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So I think my next session, what I'm going to do is I want you all to come back. I'm going to walk you through how to complete the diversity visa lottery program. I would share my screen. I'll share my screen. We'll go to the website together, and I probably have to put in some fictitious names, and I can show you how that is done so that you can do it yourselves. Okay, so I've had a very, very nice time with you, and I look forward to doing this again. Thank you so much for joining. I am very, very grateful to you all for spending your time with me. Indeed, it's been an hour, and I had so much fun doing this. I look forward to doing it again. Please don't forget to follow our social media pages, and I look forward to seeing you all again. Thank you for joining. I'm very grateful. My name is Akusia Banahini, and thank you all. Thank you.